All right, so for this deep dive, we are really going to take a scalpel to the way we think about the brain.
Hmm.
Specifically, how the food we eat, impacts its ability to constantly rebuild itself.
Right.
We're drawing on some incredible insights from Dr. Russell Blaylock. He's a practicing neurosurgeon, over 40 years of experience.
Yeah, and he's spent a huge part of his career exposing these silent dangers, things like neuroinflammation and something he calls excitotoxicity.
It's just fascinating because for decades, the accepted wisdom was that, well, once you hit adulthood, your brain was just fixed structurally.
That's right. You got the hardware you were going to have, and that was it.
Mhm.
But the big aha moment, which Dr. Blaylock's work really, really underscores,
Yeah.
is that the brain isn't just capable of change, it is constantly changing. That's plasticity in action.
And that's the secret, isn't it? It's not a once-in-a-while thing. They're developing, destroying, and repairing new synapses, new connections.
Continuously, every second of every day.
And here's the kicker that I think should give everyone some hope. The brain actually becomes more complex the older we get.
Precisely. And this isn't just a theory. Scientists have done studies on this, even on centenarians, people over 100 years old.
Wow.
And they've confirmed this continuous addition of complexity is happening even into really advanced age. This increased network complexity is, scientifically speaking, it's the basis for what we call the wisdom of the age.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If the brain is this constant building project, it needs constant high-quality maintenance. And Dr. Blaylock argues that to sustain this, the brain needs three core things: proper feeding, adequate rest, and avoiding certain toxins.
And our mission today is really focused on that first part, the feeding part.
Right, because it's the most controllable input we have.
Absolutely. And the brain's fuel requirements are steep. It's only about 2% of your body weight, but its main fuel is glucose.
Right, for energy.
Yeah, it powers at least 80% of its function. But beyond just simple energy, the brain requires these very specific, complex molecules that are sourced directly from our food.
So if we're not supplying these things, the right fuel, the right molecules, the consequences aren't just feeling a bit foggy.
No, not at all. We're talking clinical symptoms: insomnia, difficulty thinking clearly, chronic memory, and speech issues.
And even behavioral effects, right? Like depression, obsessive behaviors.
Exactly. So diet is fundamentally deeply related to our cognitive stability. And that leads us to the silent destroyer he's most concerned with: excitotoxicity.
Excitotoxicity. If diet is the answer, we have to look at the primary destroyer. So what is actually happening inside our heads when we eat these things?
Well, excitotoxicity is it's a silent but incredibly powerful destroyer of neurological tissue. It's caused by food additives that excessively stimulate nerve cells
So they're overexcited.
to the point where they are essentially exhausted and they die.
Yeah.
Think of the classic culprits, MSG or aspartame. When you consume them, they increase this excitotoxic damage, and that hyperstimulation makes the brain highly vulnerable to free radicals.
Wait, you said something before that was just shocking, that the damage could last for decades. How does a single exposure to a food additive cause neurological damage that persists for that long?
It's the mechanism. It's tied to the inflammatory process itself. These excitotoxins, they trigger this massive, uncontrolled inflammatory response, a storm of free radicals.
Storm, okay.
And even if the initial toxin gets flushed out of your system quickly,
Right.
that free radical generation, that whole inflammation cascade, it becomes self-perpetuating. It literally locks the tissue into a destructive, chronic state.
And that makes the brain susceptible to other injuries later on.
Exactly. And the practical problem is these excitotoxins are masters of disguise. They're not always clearly labeled MSG.
So what should we be looking out for on labels?
You really have to become a master label reader. These toxins are often hidden in common processed foods under all kinds of names.
Like what?
Hydrolyzed vegetable protein, soy extract, soy isolate proteins, and carrageenan is another big one.
And most modern diets are just filled with these.
A substantial amount. And the consumer has no idea they're ingesting known neurotoxins.
So we've established the fire, right? This chronic inflammatory damage. If excitotoxicity is the fire, we need a fire extinguisher. Dr. Blaylock says we can reduce this damage by arming our smallest powerhouses, the mitochondria.
Yes. The mitochondria are the power generators of the cell, including our brain cells.
Okay.
When a cell is under attack from these toxins, it needs a massive amount of energy to maintain its integrity and repair the damage.
And that's where the mitochondria come in.
By supplying the brain with the right vitamins and micronutrients, we drastically increase the mitochondria's ability to produce that energy. So if you power up the mitochondria, you naturally reduce the impact of the excitotoxicity and the inflammation.
This all sounds like a very complex chemical equation with things like riboflavin 5, phosphate, and thiamine. But the takeaway for us isn't about synthesizing those in a lab.
Not at all.
It's about eating. So to cut to the chase, we need to focus on what? The 5 essential nutrients that really protect long-term brain health and fuel this mitochondrial defense system.
Absolutely. And the first, arguably the most structurally important one, is omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA.
DHA is the rock star here.
It really is. The brain is about 60% polyunsaturated fat, and DHA makes up a staggering 50% of those fats.
So it's not just a bonus nutrient. It is literally the essential building material for the structure of the brain itself.
That's exactly right. It's essential for brain growth, function, maintenance. And on the protective side, DHA is a powerful anti-inflammatory.
Which is critical considering most degenerative brain diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, are rooted in inflammation.
Deeply rooted.
And the connection to plasticity is fascinating. You find high concentrations of DHA right in the synapses, right? The connections between nerve cells.
So DHA isn't just about memory recall. It's literally helping build and maintain the physical highways for new skills and pathways throughout your entire life.
It also helps with neurotransmitters, I read.
It does. It helps regulate mood by increasing serotonin, which is associated with sleep and mood elevation.
Preventing depression.
Right, and acetylcholine, which is the memory neurotransmitter that is severely decreased in conditions like Alzheimer's.
The clinical data on DHA is pretty persuasive. What do the numbers tell us about being deficient?
They're striking. One major study showed that Alzheimer's patients were 2.5 times more likely to have low blood levels of DHA than healthy subjects.
2.5 times? Wow.
And maybe even more concerning, elderly people with low DHA levels were found to be 67% more likely to develop Alzheimer's within the next 10 years.
67%. That's a huge risk factor. It really shows how pivotal this one molecule is.
It determines your future cognitive path in a lot of ways.
So what kind of intake are we talking about, and where do we find it naturally?
The general recommended intake is between 400 to 600 milligrams of DHA a day. And while supplements exist, and you should always keep them refrigerated to prevent oxidation,
Right.
Dr. Blaylock really emphasizes the richest natural sources. We're talking fatty, cold water fish like sardines, salmon, mackerel, and anchovies.
The usual suspects.
The best ones. Also fish roe, other seafood, and grass-fed animal foods, including pasture-raised eggs. All excellent sources.
Okay, so that's DHA. What's number 2?
Number 2 is magnesium. This mineral is in a crisis state in the American diet. Magnesium loss increases as we get older, leaving our major systems vulnerable. The heart, blood vessels, and especially the brain.
We often think of magnesium for things like muscle cramps or sleep, but its systemic role is just so much bigger.
It is. Deficiency rapidly advances major cardiovascular issues, arteriosclerosis, coronary heart disease. But for the brain, the consequence of low magnesium is truly devastating.
How so?
If your brain magnesium levels are inadequate, any neurological injury, a stroke, a concussion, any form of trauma is greatly magnified.
That's terrifying. So low magnesium could turn a relatively minor head trauma into a catastrophic one.
Because the system just lacks the ability to buffer the damage.
Exactly. Maintaining adequate levels helps stabilize cell membranes, it calms the nervous system, and supports healthy blood flow.
Which is crucial for delivering all the other nutrients we're talking about.
Precisely.
And fortunately, this one isn't hard to find if you're eating whole foods.
Not at all. We're talking leafy green vegetables like spinach and Swiss chard, nuts and seeds like pumpkin seeds and almonds, avocados, legumes. Simple, unrefined whole foods are key.
Okay, nutrient number 3.
Our third essential is vitamin C. It's so much more than just a typical antioxidant. It's vital for the brain's internal regulatory systems.
How so?
Vitamin C actually causes the brain to secrete more of those critical neurotransmitters, acetylcholine and dopamine.
The ones related to memory, learning, motor function.
All the things often compromised in Parkinson's, so it's a direct regulator of chemical communication.
And it also controls the glutamate system. Crucially, yes, it helps prevent excess secretion of glutamate, which, when it's oversecreted, is an excitotoxin itself. And it plays a vital support role by regenerating vitamin E.
Giving it a second life as an antioxidant.
Exactly.
You mentioned before that it works best when it's in its natural package, paired with flavonoids. We hear about the ORIC scale here. Can you quickly explain what that is?
Of course. The ORAC scale, that's oxygen radical absorbance capacity, it's just a scientific way of ranking how powerful a food is at fighting free radicals.
Which we know fuel brain inflammation.
Right. And vitamin C is abundant in high ORAA foods. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, citrus fruits, kiwi, bell peppers, broccoli, all the leafy greens.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving on to number 4.
Our fourth is vitamin E, specifically the family of compounds known as tocopherols. This is a very powerful, fat-soluble antioxidant.
So it works in the fatty parts of the cell.
Exactly. It's perfectly positioned to protect cell membranes and prevent necessary cholesterol from being oxidized into a damaging form.
Now, the source materials is very specific about the different forms of vitamin E, which can be confusing if you just see vitamin E on a supplement label.
That's a critical point. Dr. Blaylock emphasizes that only the natural form found in plants and a specialized form called vitamin E sustenance,
which is a normal body component,
are shown to prevent cancer and inhibit its growth.
But the main takeaway for you listening isn't to necessarily hunt down that specific form. It's that this finding just underlines how essential the natural compound is.
Precisely. While the science flags sustenance as powerful, the takeaway is simple. We have to prioritize the natural tocopherols found in whole, unprocessed fats.
So things like almonds, sunflower seeds,
hazelnuts, avocados, olive oil, and leafy green vegetables. If it contains healthy natural fat, it likely contains vitamin E to protect that fat.
Perfect. And that brings us to the 5th and final essential.
Finally, we turn back to the mitochondrial defense system with a real powerhouse duo, coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10 and alpha-lipoic acid, ALA. CoQ10 is the primary energy generator inside the mitochondria. It's a hugely important energy molecule and a powerful antioxidant that protects the brain and body.
And ALA complements it perfectly, right? They're stronger together.
They are. ALA is unique because it's both fat and water soluble.
So it can work everywhere in the body.
Throughout the entire body's systems, it's found in all living tissue and is one of the most powerful and versatile antioxidants in the entire biological system.
And it works with CoQ10 to boost that anti-excitotoxic defense we talked about.
That's the one.
You know, if we connect this all to the bigger picture, what really stands out is that sustaining complex brain function requires nothing exotic or highly synthesized.
Isn't it all?
These 5 nutrients, and the others we mentioned, they're all readily available in natural, unprocessed whole foods. It's really just a return to simple eating.
That's the core message.
So we've talked about what to eat to fuel plasticity. Now we have to talk about what to actively avoid, because as we age, the battle against inflammation gets a lot harder.
That's a crucial transition to make. As we age, our inflammatory burden just skyrockets. The source material notes that by the time someone reaches age 75, free radical generation is 10 times higher than when they were young.
10 times.
And it's 15-fold higher within the mitochondria themselves. We are fighting a massive internal uphill battle.
So we absolutely cannot afford to intentionally feed that fire. What is the single biggest dietary factor that escalates this brain inflammation?
A high intake of omega-6 fats, and crucially, an imbalanced ratio of omega-6 to omega-3.
Right, because we need some omega-6.
We do need some. It's essential. But the modern Western diet provides an overwhelmingly destructive amount, and this drastically increases brain inflammation, which raises the risk of diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
This means actively limiting or even eliminating specific oils from our kitchens. And this is probably the hardest piece of advice for most people to follow, just given how ubiquitous these oils are.
It requires vigilance. The oils to limit or eliminate are corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, soybean oil, and canola oil.
All the cheap ones.
The cheap and stable ones, which is why they are the foundation of almost all processed foods, fast food, and so many commercial salad dressings.
So Dr. Blaylock is essentially saying, change your cooking oil and become a master label reader to avoid them hidden in packaged goods.
That's the advice.
And that takes us right back to the start. If we're avoiding processed fats, we should be eating fresh fruits and vegetables, preferably organic. But even that comes with a caveat.
It does. Even if you prioritize organic produce, the source material advises washing it with a vegetable wash.
Why is that?
Because there are pesticides and, atmospheric contaminants that can settle on the produce to some degree, regardless of how it was grown.
So it's not just about the source, but the final surface preparation.
Wow.
What about other foods that stress the system?
We have to be vigilant about our liver health, since the liver processes so many of these toxins. That's why Dr. Blaylock flags excess consumption of red meat, which can be toxic to the liver in large amounts, and of course anything with high sugar content, which just fuels overall systemic inflammation.
So the rules are all interconnected.
Avoid the toxins, reduce the inflammation, and supply the building blocks.
To wrap this all up then, what's really fascinating here is that the function of the brain, our memory, our mood, our wisdom, our cognitive sharpness, it's all directly and fundamentally tied to the complex molecules we choose to put into our bodies.
Every choice means we are either actively feeding the brain's continuous plasticity and complexity, or we're actively fueling its destructive inflammation.
And this raises an important question for you, the listener. Since your brain is continuously building new pathways and synapses, even into advanced age, it's a constant construction project. What small, manageable dietary choice will you commit to making today to invest in the complexity of your mind 10 or 20 years from now? The deep dive is complete.